Rainy weather in Kwazulu-Natal is making driving along the N3 more difficult this Easter Monday. More heavy rain has been forecast for the province. Our reporter Ndzimande joins me now from the Marion Hill Toll Plaza. I believe he has Transport Minister Blade Ndzimande with him. Ndzimande, what's the latest?
Well, Nicholas, I am now joined by the Minister of Transport, Blade Ndzimande, who will just give us an idea of what has been happening, and how the Easter campaign is fared out in terms of road safety. Minister, thank you for joining us. Could you please just give us an idea of the road safety campaign that you had set out and whether or not you're happy with how it has proceeded?
Look, ideally we wouldn't like to see a single soul being lost on our roads. But we are happy thus far because just nationally, in terms of road fatalities this time, last year, that is during last year's Easter weekend, we're 41% down, which is very, very significant for us. And we really attribute that largely to visibility, that whenever we've increased visibility on a 24-hour basis, we do actually manage to reduce the crashes to begin with, as well as road fatalities. But also, what is significant this time is that there's been far less crashes involving your bigger vehicles that normally lead to massive numbers of fatalities. Like, for instance, if minibus taxis are involved, or the trucks, because if a truck gets involved in a crash, it usually affects a lot of people and lots of vehicles. We've had less of that. So it's very positive. We're very pleased thus far, although we're concerned about the weather, in parts of the country, including here in KZN, as many people are actually traveling back to work, back to their homes. We just want to emphasize for people to really be cautious, keep safe driving distance. If you're doing long distance, take a rest, every 2 hours. Here today, we started this operation at 9, whose main aim really is a combination of education as well as checking wrong things. We're checking alcohol, drunken driving. We're checking the state of the vehicles, including braking systems, whether the brakes are working or not. We're checking whether vehicles are registered. We are checking on driver's license. Of course, what continues to be of concern, since 9 o'clock and the time I arrived here about half an hour ago, we had done about more than 660 vehicles that we had checked. But 10% of those, we found them to be having all sorts of, things that we do not want off our road. Unregistered vehicles, vehicles that are not roadworthy, people without driver's licenses, and people that have been pulled aside for suspected drunken driving. So 10% is very high. It still shows that a significant number of drivers in South Africa are really not following on road safety rules and procedures. But on the other hand, it's very positive, that our law enforcement officers are able to pick them up, So we're doing that this morning in order to ensure that we save lives. There is one particular vehicle that was stopped this morning, which is a minibus taxi. It looked like, from the experienced road traffic officers, it was involved in a serious road crash, was not properly fixed. Even passengers were shocked when it was being inspected, that the vehicle is just not supposed to be on the road. So there were a few vehicles that we took off the road and asked the owners to actually, if it's minibus taxis, to send safer vehicles so that our passengers can be safe.
Now, Minister, you speak of a 41% decrease. Last year we had about 510 or so people who lost their lives on the road. Looking at this time around, could you give us sort of an idea of a figure and whether or not this campaign or the campaigns that you've been running will see us having far less of a number of people who lose their lives?
Well, we hope so. As I've said, in terms of numbers, we at the moment are having 104 fatalities. Last year it was more than double that at this time. As I'm saying, we are very positive, at least, that there's been this decrease. As I say, we don't want to see ideally a single person perishing on our roads, but the numbers are way down. We hope that we actually maintain this, so that when you actually then are counting the entire Easter weekend, including the whole of Monday, which is today, we will be having much lower figures of the number of crashes, but in particular the number of fatalities and injuries. As I was saying, I am worried about the weather, and large parts of KZN it's raining, and it looks like it's still going to rain even where we are, and usually that leads to much more road crashes that we have. So that's why we are calling upon, even at this time, our drivers, to please drive with care. Let them take more time to reach their destination rather than to drive rushing. And they must have breaks. After 2 hours, if you're driving, you must have a break so that we also reduce fatigue, which is another major contributory factor to our road crashes.
Before we let you go, Minister, just one more thing now. Issues around road safety in the country are a major growing concern. So it's not only issues around high traffic volumes at periods such as Easter and Christmas. Moving forward, how will you be taking the plans that you have put in place and implemented to ensure that moving forward, South African roads do become safer?
Well, the first thing is that we really have to hype the issue of road safety 365 days a year. On that score, we think that there is a lot that we can still do. We tried that a couple of years ago. We want to reinstate that so that it's not just when it's Easter weekend or the festive season, but throughout the year. That is why, amongst other things, for the first time, by the end of this year, we would have taken 1,000 new recruits, as traffic police, traffic officers. Because there is a relationship between police visibility and the number of road crashes. But as I've said before, we are going to be taking much more serious action against drunken driving. It's going to be a much more serious offense. And also, as soon as the president signed this new law that will allow us to implement what we call the points demerit system, we're going to be deducting points for offenders, because it's very clear to me, that we have to be much tougher, much as we should continue with education, but we have to be much tougher. The fact that 10% of the people here were actually not following the rules is a concern. We have to be much, much tougher, including much tougher, by the way, with those of our traffic officials who are taking bribes if they catch people who are doing wrong things. So it's 365 days. It's much tougher on things like drunken driving, tougher on those who break the law, and we escalate education so that no one will be able to say they did not know, As you can see, our highways are beautiful. They rank amongst the best in the world, actually. But also they are killers if people do not follow the rules of the road. And that's what we want to deal with.
No, thank you, Minister, for your time. Thank you. We'll leave it there for now with you. Well, you've definitely heard there from the Minister of Transport himself, Ndzimande, just explaining what this process has been all about, what this campaign has been all about and what they achieved. You've heard that we've had just a little over 100 fatalities. And at this time last year, we were sitting on figures around the 510 mark. In fact, KZN alone had 111 fatalities. And that is what was a major concern, and they are working towards addressing that.
Ndzimande, thank you very much for that. The very latest from KZN as holidaymakers return to their destinations.